We're live?
All right, we are live, yeah.
All right. If anybody is not watching, we should probably retweet this. I'm going to do that right now. Retweet again. Come watch us live. Now, okay. All right, Sir Hot. It's your rodeo.
All right, thanks, Chairman. Welcome, everyone. First of all, thanks, everyone, for joining as a panelist. I'm really glad to see you all here. So we did this Raymond hunting. We took selfies with heroes and did a pre-event thing as well. Talk with Jeremy and Alex and Emrah, who's not here. So today we're excited because pre-event is over and we have a lot of announcements already. So we have a lot to discuss. But before, let's do a roundup quickly and introduce ourselves for about a couple of seconds maybe. So let me go first. My name is Sarhat Can. I'm one of the co-founders of Resmo, and I'm an AWS community hero. So.
Right. Maybe I'll go next. I'm Jeremy Daly. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Amped. I'm also an AWS serverless hero. Christy?
I can go next.
Oh, go ahead, Yvonne.
Sorry. So Yvonne Roberts, a software architect at Bill, and also I'm an AWS serverless hero.
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Peralt. I am an AWS serverless hero and a principal software engineer at Liberty Mutual Insurance, where I focus on cloud enablement.
I can go. Yes, I'm Alex. Go. Oh, go ahead, Danielle.
Go, Alex. I'll go. Yeah, I'm Danielle Heberling. I'm an AWS community builder, and I am currently a software engineer at a benefits brokerage called Nava Benefits.
I'm Alex Debris. I'm an AWS data hero, and I do independent consulting around DynamoDB and serverless.
I'm John Burgess. I'm an AWS community hero in the Bay Area.
Hi, it's Daria. You can call me Dorian. I think I'm the only ambassador here. So hi, everyone.
And everybody sounds a little bit scratchy, a little hoarse after attending reInvent. I think the people on this panel are the only ones that avoided COVID. Am I right about that?
Yeah,
so far.
I've tested negative 3 times, so I'm still pulling that I won't come back positive at some point, but the recold is true.
Yeah, we got flu in our house, so that's what I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah.
I still sleep a bit noontime, so I'm still jet lagged. Folks, I mean, I only have a few questions because I know there will be questions from the attendees as well. And let's start with your experience. What was your expectation? I mean, obviously we had a reInvent before, right after COVID, but it was like 20K people-ish. So it was small relatively. This one was big. I mean, like the old days. What did you expect? What did you find? How was your reInvent? Yeah.
I think it was almost as exciting. Well, not almost. I think it was really as exciting as the previous years before the COVID. A lot of people, a lot of places to walk to if you wanted to attend the events. In the past, you could reserve multiple sessions close to each other, but now they have it more organized where they also calculate the time for you to walk around, and exciting keynote speeches. And yeah, it was a really good experience. We were able to meet previous friends from previous reInvents. It's a great place for everyone from around the world to come together once a year and meet who don't usually have an opportunity to, meet at the same time. Yeah.
I'd love to share a little bit. Last year was actually my first reInvent, so it's definitely a lot different this year with the larger number of attendees. I'll also share, for folks on the call that maybe are earlier in their career, or a part of an underrepresented group. I attended last year on the All Builders Welcome Grant, which is an awesome opportunity to be able to attend reInvent. They cover just about all of your costs to attend, the ticket, the flight, the hotel. So I had an amazing experience last year, and it just continued this year. So this was my first year attending as a hero and as an AWS user group lead. So I got to network a ton last year and checked out a lot of sessions, and just kind of continued on with those conversations and meeting more people. So if you had FOMO this year, or you're looking for a way to get you there, I definitely highly recommend the All Builders Welcome Grant. Really kickstarted my journey into the community, and has made my experience at reInvent really awesome.
Yeah, a couple of words maybe from my side. Like, I still remember the first time I attended reInvent back in 2014. It was just only in Venetian, so it was quite small at that time, and I realized how big it is now, including the big campus. Like, it literally takes like almost an hour walking from the south part of the campus till the further the other venues. So it's quite massive now, also compared to last year, because it was like because of pandemic last year it was around 20K. Does anybody know how many attendees? Some people say 65, some people say 80. So
it was over 50.
Over 50.
Over
Okay.
50, I said, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but I think somebody said it was over 50. I think in 2019 it was 65,000, and that was insane. I mean, that's a lot of people. I did think they handled the keynote a little bit differently this year. Rather than having to go line up all the way past the expo hall and go down that way, they opened up that other room and they brought people in that way. So they brought them in from the other side. And I felt like the seating at the keynote, at least for Werner's, was a lot smoother than it had been in the past. But yeah, I mean, from my expectation standpoint, like, I expected it to be as crazy as it had ever been. Last year, right, was a little bit subdued. The masks were absolutely necessary, but such a horrible thing to do when you're screaming at other people through a mask. Your face is soaking wet. You can't hear, especially with how loud it is. Being able to sort of read people's lips is sort of a skill you pick up at some of these conferences. But I thought it was great. I mean, obviously, I don't think I met anybody that arrived that wasn't already sick. So I think like it was definitely a big commune for sharing illnesses from, 100 different countries or whatever that was. But I did notice this year I was paying attention a little bit more. I thought that AWS did a good job with, with the diversity this year. I saw a lot of women. I think I saw more women this year. I would really love to see those numbers, that breakdown, but I felt like there was a more representation this year. And AWS always does a great job with the pins for the pronouns and, and like what is your preferred language to communicate in and things like that. So I always appreciate when people take that extra step. I do think, though, that the swag could have been a little bit better. I'm not a big fan of the black hoodie. I have a lot of these. The water bottle is always nice, which they brought back this year, by the way. They didn't have last year, I think, because of the COVID. But I think COVID tests would have been a really nice addition to the swag this year, just so everybody had them and they could bring them back for themselves. But yeah, I had a blast. I always wonder if I'm ever going to make it home from reInvent, just because it's so hectic and busy and you get so run down. But I made it back and had a great time. So yeah.
Yeah, the
All right,
last
I gotta
time
hang
I
out.
attended. The last time I attended was in 2019, and I was a vendor, so I had to hang out in the expo hall for most of the time. And it was a lot of fun this time because I actually got to like talk to people outside of the vendor hall, and also with the hoodies. It was great to get a hoodie that actually fit me this year because in 2019 it's my first reInvent, so I guess I went to pick up my swag too late, and the smallest size they had was a men's extra large.
That's going to be big.
Yeah, I took
Yeah,
it home
if
to
you
my
wanna
partner
get
because I was like, someone might as well take this, but cool.
If you want a well-fitting jacket, you should go the first day.
That's definitely the requirement. And then find all the vouchers and the different lines and the different places to get all like the extra swag. They had like blankets, I think, and t-shirts and such. But I had a lot of fun at reInvent this year. I was a little apprehensive because I knew it was going to be back to like pre-pandemic numbers. And unfortunately, I signed up a little too late and only got to reserve like one session a day. But I actually was really surprised. I'm not sure what was different, but I actually every day was able to get into at least 1 or 2 sessions that I didn't reserve, which I thought was pretty cool. So whatever magic they did this year, I hope they continue to do that. Because I remember like previous years, like, I don't know, 2017, I remember it. You would like stand in line for like 3 or 4 sessions and not get in. But this year, every line I made, I was able to get in, which was really cool.
Maybe because the number of sessions were a lot this year. Yeah, I mean,
Maybe.
like several venues.
Yeah,
And I noticed they had a lot more of like the, what is it called? The green room, the overflow rooms. I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah,
Any
but
sessions you recommend,
also
Yvonne?
they reserve
Oh, sorry.
allow only a few people to reserve the seat, and they allowed more people to walk.
To walk up. Oh, is
Yeah.
that what it is? That makes sense.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Also,
Alex, you mentioned like what sessions. I really enjoyed a lot of the event-driven sessions. There was, I have to admit, I went to a couple that were in Spanish because I figured I didn't want to deal with the lines. But there
That's a
were,
nice hack.
yeah, it was pretty good. But then I realized I don't really have to do that. But a lot of those are really interesting, different point of views that I hadn't really thought about that I thought were pretty cool.
I mean, to me, just shortly, I was able to catch up with friends from all over the world, so that was great. And this was my 5th time in Vegas, so and my first time in Grand Canyon, so that was nice. The downside was I couldn't see Jeff Barr this year, so I couldn't find him. Like maybe he doesn't use Twitter anymore, so maybe I don't know. Like that's why. But anyone was able to see Jeff Barr?
When I was in my taxi, like driving away from to go to the airport, I saw him standing outside the Venetian. I was like, "Oh, there's Jeff Barr." Yeah,
I ran into him like 3 times. Yeah, I ran into him at the analyst thing, and then I ran into it at this common room speaker session that they had, and then I ran into him later on, I think on the show floor or something like that. So yeah, he's always fun to talk to though. So so if you missed him, Alex, and you missed him, Serhat, then I saw him 2 extra times. So I'll give you those meetings. I'll attribute them to you.
What I'm learning is that we all need to hang out with Jeremy when we're there, because I didn't see that many women. I didn't have the same experience. So I'd love to see what circles you're hanging out in, Jeremy. And if you're seeing Jeff Barr and all the diverse folks at the conference, you're doing it right. So
oh yeah, I mean,
I want to see my t-shirt says user groups. If you go to the user groups meeting, it's on Wednesday evenings for all the community leaders. Jeff Barr always comes to that every year. So you can actually talk with him there. This year he did not come to the mixer, but he came and opened the meeting. So if you want to meet Jeff Barr, he's definitely available on Wednesdays for us. Yeah, and I, well, like you were saying about meeting other women and diversity, I don't remember meeting any one of you other than Serhat, of course. But I guess there's just too many people and too little time. That could be another reason.
And that is definitely true. I mean, the number of people that you can, I mean, one of the things that for me was I passed a few people that I saw and I sort of walked over and talked to them for maybe a minute or 2, but didn't really get to sit down and have a long conversation because I was always on my way to something else. Like I always had another meeting. It's like, hey, you got 5 minutes? Like, actually, I don't. I have to get to another meeting. But yeah, I mean, I think, Chrissy, my evidence maybe is a little more anecdotal, but I was sort of looking around, right? I'm trying to be a little bit more, open-eyed about some of these things. And I did. I saw a lot of. I saw a lot more. I think. I mean, again, maybe it's just more of a perception thing. And now that I'm paying attention more, but I thought I saw a lot more. Especially in some of those the breakouts, some of the community things that were outside of some of the official reInvent things, like some of the sponsored things and whatever. There's a couple of great talks. The Common Room was a great example. And that was around, community building and some of these other things. So there was a lot of good speakers as well as a lot of great attendees. But yeah, that's why I'd love to see the numbers too, because I'm curious what the registration numbers were and if they've been changing over the years and going up. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know. But I certainly felt like it was a little bit of a broader diversity group this year than it has been in the past. And I think last year, I think I noticed it was like people who could travel. There's a lot of people from other countries that couldn't get there because of the COVID restrictions and things like that. So it was just a very, very, I guess, bland reInvent last year. And I felt like it had that same energy this year as it had in the past.
Yeah, last year I remember I had the ticket and everything, including flight ticket, train ticket, but there was a restriction between UK and US. So last 2 weeks before, yes, literally 2 weeks before it was released. So we were all UK, colleagues, we were happy to, join. It happened last second, so it was challenging last year. Yeah. Regarding Jeff Barr, I think he was quite popular because of his purple hair. So
Again, yeah,
he couldn't attend. I was also expecting him to an ambassador reception, but he couldn't join.
yeah. I mean, he usually comes to the hero dinner, but this year, I guess he went to the analyst meeting and I wasn't there, so that's probably why I missed him as well. So, folks, let's talk about your favorite sessions. Favorite announcements, not sessions. If you want to end anything, I mean, maybe someone said your favorite thing, like favorite announcement before, you can jump in and obviously add a few things, however you like. So anyone wants to go first on your favorite announcement? Anyone?
I would say for me, obviously I'm more focused on the serverless side, and I work with a lot of enterprises that use a lot of Java. So the enhancements around cold starts were pretty amazing. Obviously they announced the snap start on the keynote stage, but basically where, you get the image is initialized, it's snapshotted, that's the word. And then the restore is a lot more snappier. Pun intended, which was really cool. But then I went to the session where we talked in more detail about under the hood, what they did. And there was actually quite a few other changes that they made to improve cold starts in general that I thought were pretty interesting. Like they mentioned their worker task or service, which would assign a request to an actual Lambda invocation wasn't, multi-AZ. It didn't have redundancy. So if one of those went down, all of those Lambda instances are orphaned and thus needing more initialized Lambdas. So I think it's several layers of improvement that I thought was pretty awesome to see, which I think will be really big for enterprise companies who have tried to strengthen their muscle using other languages to counteract that problem. And now maybe they don't have to.
A huge
and
plus
I
one on
remember
that.
I remember from the early days, there were a lot of community efforts to decrease that cold startup time, especially for Java. And I always felt like that was something AWS needs to take care of. And as I'm saying with you, it's great to see that is hopefully fixed now.
And I love
it. Just took me a long. That took me a long time to get my computer to somehow make this my background image. So I don't.
That's great. Yeah. That
Well, now I see Jeff.
Two Jeremys and one Jeff Barr.
I love that point that Ivan's saying about how they're sharing all the different ways they're helping with cold starts, because it's kind of hard for them to have a feature announcement to be hey, our worker instance is now multi-AZ, but it does change how cold starts work and when some of that old information becomes out of date or some of that stuff. So I having one session where they can at least be hey, here's all these different things we're making, and things you may have heard in the past are no longer the case. It's useful to have some of that, and hopefully that trickles out in some way.
Yeah, so. there was something you can't use the extensions API, and then there was some things about it also freezes the environment variables, right? So if you're updating environment variables or pushing updates to environment variables to, or I guess live, or updating them with, reaching into SSM or something like that, those things can get out of date. But I actually talked to Deepak Singh about this afterwards. I was able to interview him for the Serverless Chats podcast, and he's really excited about that technology, right? So it's just being applied to Java now, because obviously that's the one that makes the most sense, because Java is such an amazing language and everybody loves it so much that, they want to put all their efforts behind that, but the cold starts are really bad. So I think that's really interesting. But he said that, that technology is, integrated with Firecracker and so forth. So there's a lot of really cool things where that's going to go. So I'm excited to see, beyond just, Lambda, it could be containers, it could be some of these other things as well.
I'd say from an enterprise perspective, I mean, it's even simpler than that, right? Like most of our skill set is a 110-year-old company. It's Java Spring Boot. So it's tough for, that's the one ask I get constantly as somebody in cloud enablement is, well, why can't I write this in Java? Can I write it in Java? Because that's just what the familiarity is and the skill set is. So there's been a lot of folks that have kind of switched over to Python or TypeScript because of the cold start thing. But I think that this will help quite a lot in the enterprise setting.
Cool.
Yeah, from my side, maybe I can add the emphasis on asynchronous way of doing things. I like the keynote of Werner a lot because the reality, as I'm working as in consultancy, I can see several of our customers still stuck in legacy, like the way that it was done before, like no serverless, no like event-driven architectures, even no microservices, even no domain services. Everything is like monolith, sometimes desktop applications, like from 20 years old time. So the reality is still the majority in the industry are not able to benefit from decoupled architectures, like including event-driven architectures and decoupled architectures. The emphasis of asynchronous way of doing things, I think it was okay, it was good, I liked it. And the session of Luca regarding event storming, I liked it a lot. So I think first time there's such session in reinvent. Deep dive into domain-driven design in software architecture. So that's main, the what I can say from my side.
I'd love to chat about the AWS application composer, and I know that Danielle wrote a post about this, and she used to be part of Stackery. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on sort of the evolution of that and where you think that's going.
Yeah, totally, Jeremy. Yeah, I guess my biased answer is I'm most excited about App Composer, mostly because, used to work at Stackery, saw what it was like behind the scenes, building a library to set up essentially what some call cloud assembly code is not an easy task. But yeah, I think for me personally, I was completely new to serverless when I joined Stackery, and just being able to have that visual builder was a complete game changer for me. And also once I got, good at it and learned from, the visual builder, I was able to do some more complicated things, kind of use the drag and drop as like a starting point, and then go in and manually edit the template. And that's what I think might be the vision for a lot of this. I've kept in touch with, Chase Douglas, Ryan Coleman, that have since moved on to AWS, Anna Spies as well. They're all doing fantastic work, and really want everyone's feedback. So I would be remiss to say, if you see something missing, including, CDK exports per se, make sure you put it in the feedback form, because they are gonna prioritize things based off of how much it's recommended. But yeah, I mean, honestly, long term, I would love to see a world where we don't have to write IAC. I know we are kind of far away from that, but also, keeping an eye on AMPs and the infrastructure from code way of doing it. But yeah, App Composer is very much in preview. So that's why they really want people's feedback. Some things that I personally would love to see are VPC, easier said than done. Yeah. My company uses Fargate a lot, so Fargate would be fantastic. But yeah, really excited about it. Also AppSync as well. That would be really cool too. People love AppSync, myself included. So.
Well, I don't think we need CDK exports. So I know everybody wants them, but honestly, I don't get the idea of taking CloudFormation or SAM and turning it back into CDK and then synthesizing it back into CloudFormation. But maybe that's just me. But what I love about App Composer is that, look, I started my career in 1997 copying and pasting Perl snippets for CGI bin or for Perl scripts copying and pasting and just trying to figure out how they work, like changing a line here and so forth. And I think that is, and still to this day, I will, search for some solution that some simple algorithm, whatever, and I'll copy it and I'll figure it out and I'll paste it in and I'll make some changes there. But having that starting point is huge. And especially with IAC, it gets so complex so fast that being able to visualize it and sort of make that sort of like, here's the baseline of what I need to do. And like you said, Danielle, sort of like gives you that starting point, and then you can go in and start figuring out things more deeply. I love that approach. And I think it's a great way to learn, because again, it doesn't, you're not just staring at all this YAML or JSON, try to figure out how to, what does what, but you can actually see it represented and have that visual aspect of it. So that starting point to me is very, very big. And I think, I put in my newsletter yesterday, I think this could open up serverless for more people, because it's just more obvious to them. You know what I mean? It's more obvious of the building blocks, as opposed to just a wall of text that is very, very hard to comprehend for even me now. When I look at a big CloudFormation template, I'm like, why are we still doing this?
Yeah, I would definitely ditto that. Given what Dorian said, right? Like a lot of companies, it's kind of hard to adopt serverless and adopt some of these new things, mostly because maybe they don't even have the time, right, to figure out all the details, and to have things like basically templating, like what Code Catalyst is trying to do, what a lot of enterprise companies are doing with Backstage, is making these one-click templated solutions that can, produce a fully featured microservice and get them out the door faster. And then, like you said, Jeremy, turn around, go back, and then dive into the weeds for that little piece that you need to customize. I think it's a pretty powerful story, I think.
Definitely, I agree. You want it. So it will be like let's say an easier way maybe for them to architect decoupled architect. There was some tools, I don't want to give a name, but there were some vendors also were kind of doing what Composer is trying to do, but this one is definitely will be more AWS native, and I think we need to maybe evangelize it more together, so that to get more feedback from the industry.
And I think tangentially along the lines of like having a baseline, just not starting from scratch. Code Whisperer is also very exciting to me.
What is Code Whisperer? Can you tell me more about that? Is that like Copilot?
Yeah, it's kind of like GitHub Copilot, but it's like the AWS flavor of it. Truth be told, I use Copilot in my day job and love it. I put myself on the wait list for Code Whisperer and still have not been picked. So hint, AWS people.
Daniel, I think it is in open preview now. I was told.
Oh, nice. I'll have to check that out. Thanks, John.
Yeah, sure.
I think they announced enterprise controls for Code Whisperer as well at reInvent. So that was something that I had kind of tabbed to. But we have a lot of, as an insurance company that's very large, we have a lot of restrictions and things that we have to worry about with some of those tools and things. So I don't foresee us bringing in a ton of stuff soon. Though there were some other smaller announcements that I'm pretty excited about from that front. I know some of the CloudWatch stuff that came out with the cross-account observability, as well as the protection around sensitive data. So like social security numbers, credit card numbers, personal information is being protected in CloudWatch logs now. So there's a data policy for that, as well as we have hundreds of AWS accounts. So I'd love to be able to take advantage of the cross-account visibility and have a central account to see all of those logs, because that is a huge thing for us with almost, I actually just checked the other day, we're at 94,000 Lambda functions. So that is also a lot of CloudWatch groups to keep an eye on. So there's some really exciting stuff there that kind of slid under the radar, I think, a little bit. And we're looking forward to kind of digging into some of that.
It's good to see the tooling sort of catch up as, many accounts become sort of the norm everywhere. And it feels like a lot of things were breaking across that. And now they're sort of building up the tooling to manage that better and use that better. So that's good to see.
Yeah. I think the main difference between Copilot and Code Whisper, by the way, is that Copilot allegedly steals code from GitHub, and then Code Whisper allegedly steals code from Code Whisperer. So, you know, in terms of where it figures out that stuff, there's actually a lawsuit, I guess a class action lawsuit against Copilot right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and where that leads Code Whisperer. But you know, the other thing, Chrissy, you just mentioned about this idea of cross accounts and things like that. You know, again, who mentioned Danielle? You mentioned something about not or getting into VPCs and stuff like that with you know, Application Composer. VPC Lattice that came out. You know, again, this is probably not super exciting for serverless people, but if you are building some larger applications, that is actually a really cool service. That might be a nice way to solve some of those problems. So it would be nice if some of these heavy lifting things like VPCs and security groups and whatever became part of a more automated sort of single flow solution service. Then that might make it easier for App Composer and some of these other things to plug into those and make it a little bit easier. So I know it's not super exciting because it's you know, it's not really a serverless thing, but I think behind the scenes, especially when you get to the larger companies and enterprises like, you know, Christy is doing with Liberty Mutual, you're just not gonna be able to avoid them. So having them easier to use is a good thing.
So I'll admit, I don't know the details of it, but the one-liner that I saw made me think that this would simplify like the communication between, let's say, a Lambda into, let's say, a cluster. Like it's kind of like another level of app mesh, maybe? I don't know. Is that true or am I ignorant?
Yeah, I was talking to Danilo about this and I forgot what he said. I thought he said that it was like, you know, think of it as like an event bridge for VPCs almost, like it's that centralized thing that connects everything. But I don't remember if that's exactly what he said, but that's how I've been reading it and thinking about it. I did a little bit more research on it the last couple of days. But yeah, I mean, it's supposed to make network communication super simple. So you have these policies where you basically can write, you know, you can create the connections between these different things, and then depending on the services that run them. So you abstract away the underlying services and you just kind of create that like the channels to make the connections, and then those individual services can plug into those channels. I think that's right. Again, I try to stay away from VPCs as much as I can, but I have had to use them a number of times. So you know, it is interesting to see what this might do for it.
Also,
Speaking of not serverless,
sorry, please go on, Kristen.
I was just going to say that they also kind of slid in there. There's some updates to optimization for the RDS read and write. So I say we're serverless first, so I support a lot of serverless tools. So that's where I'm most excited about. But there were definitely some things that I think our customers will be excited about that we can kind of easily adopt, hopefully, in the coming weeks. But that was one thing that there seemed to be a lot of little optimizations and tweaks here and there to make the experience a little bit better. So that was one example that I saw too.
I was gonna mention a tool which I think will adapt, will help companies to adapt serverless and decoupled architectures easier, which is under-mentioned, which probably you may not heard about, which is microservice extractor. This is a tool with that AWS Microsoft team has developed. I think that's a great tool. I tried it out with several context code. What it does is it splits a function from a monolith to be run as a separate API. You can run it either on a serverless or as a container. I know it is under-mentioned. Maybe most people have not heard about this, but last year it was in preview. This year it's in stable version, which I think quite interesting stuff. It's from a complex monolith. It's like a magic to like pull a portion of a code, also grouping it with some methods that you think it's linked with, and get it out like a separate API. Of course, let's call it like splitting the monolith into, let's say, microservices, but into functions. And it helps it will help the adaptation of servers, I think, by time. Just for everyone who doesn't know this tool, I'm also adding the link the chat.
Nice. I missed that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I missed that too.
Yeah. Anyone else wants to add something on serverless?
On non-serverless or on serverless?
Yeah. Non-serverless, maybe. Yeah.
Non-serverless.
Event bridge pipes. I'm surprised no one's chatted about that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many times we've added, lambdas just for simple filtering that, glue code's always a liability. And it was exciting to see that we can delete all of that. I love deleting things, especially code.
Totally agree. Yeah, that's an interesting one too, because there are a lot of those patterns that it's like you take one service that does something for you, and then you just want to shuttle it to another service or whatever. And it's that extra Lambda function. And the crazy thing is, and this is one of the things I loved about Lambda destinations, was this idea that you didn't have to worry about the results of your processing getting to the destination. Like if that failed, then they would reprocess it. They would handle all that stuff there. And that's what I really like about the event pipes thing too, is that you have this service that when you used to be shipping it into some code that was brittle that you wrote that was easy to break, or something could happen in that function, and you might maybe don't shift the information the way you need to, or that doesn't reach the destination when you try to post it with the SDK or whatever. That's just a whole bunch of extra overhead, and again, processing fees too, that now you don't need to do. And then you can go ahead and ship that to the other service. And the very cool thing about it is you can do some transformations within the event pipe service itself, but you can also use a Lambda function. And the great thing about the Lambda function there is that, again, you don't have to manage the output. So you don't have to push that to the destination. It's just whatever the output of your Lambda is ends up getting sent to the destination. So it's a subtle nuance when using a Lambda function in between two things, but it makes your code a million times safer and more resilient, because it's not going, you're not responsible for making that extra HTTP call into some other service. It just happens automatically for you.
I mean, even like for cron jobs, I know a lot of people just use something like Quartz, but with event bridge rules, I mean, it can scale more than the other services. So even that use case is very powerful, I guess. So right now, I mean, we had some options in AWS, but there were some serious limitations. And I know people just, were complaining about doing some scalable cron jobs, for example. Anyone wants to add something? And another announcement, other announcements are also welcome.
Yeah, Powell mentioned this idea of still waiting for sync destinations. So that is something actually Slobodan Stojanovic and I we were talking about the second that the async Lambda destinations came out. This idea of being able to basically just say process some code synchronously and then send the output of that to some destination. I think that it sort of exists now when you have a synchronous call, right? Whatever returns from your Lambda function ends up back into back to the synchronous service that called it, whether it's API gateway or something like that. But this is sort of, I'm not sure exactly how that would work, because it would sort of be like you'd have to have a response that goes back to the synchronous caller and then something else that shuttles it to to another destination. So I'm not sure how that actually works, but yeah, that we were talking about that quite a bit. And actually, if you search for synchron or Lambda destinations from Slobodan, he has a whole thing that he wrote up about how synchronous ones might work, which might be interesting to anybody who wants to see it.
Okay. So in my own interest, that I think, AWS, keeps a great job every year on security announcements. So I really like this, Amazon Security Lake. The problem is very clear. There are a lot of different security vendors doing just, something, but, you have to tie 10 different things to actually, make something useful, and bringing that data together on AWS, was hard. Right now, I think it will be much easier. So I see it as a bit competitor to Splunk. Having this kind of data in AWS creates a lot of opportunities. So I really like the idea of Security Lake. We'll explore it. I think it's right now in preview. We'll see how it goes.
What about Amazon Inspector supporting Lambda functions now? Did anybody else see that announcement?
No.
I saw it.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't use that, but I did see that. So pretty cool.
And I haven't dug too deep into it, but I'm essentially thinking it's like a sort of a built-in, almost a competitor to Sneak, I guess, or Snick or Sneak, however you pronounce that, as a Sneak. That'll scan your Lambda functions. And I guess Jones Zachariah Noel has a great post that he kind of goes through it. And there was somebody mentioned that if you compile things and then you ship that and then it goes to scan it, that it can't necessarily find it. But as long as you ship your package.json or package lock with it, that it will do those security scans for you as well. So, or the vulnerability scans. Anyways, just anything that helps with security and takes care of that automatically for you is a good thing with serverless applications.
Yeah.
I'll say Sneak has a cute dog logo going for it though, and some cute
Is that
plushies
cute though?
that they
It
had.
doesn't that
They
look
had
like
cute- they had-
like a German Shepherd or something though?
They
It
had
seems
really cute plushies at reInvent though that you could get out of their
Oh.
claw machine that were very
Okay.
cute. So they
'Cause
do have a dog as a logo, which is a big pull for some people, I think.
Yeah, I feel like if I saw that dog though, I would just turn around. I mean, I guess that's the whole idea, that you're sort
That's
of
the
trying
point,
to
right?
detract people from, right, exactly.
I did see that there was some love for Python developers like myself with Glue and some of the data analytics stuff too. There's the Glue 4.0 announcement as well. So I've utilized Glue in the past. So it's cool to see some support for pandas and some other data analytics tools. And I've been big in the Python space. So it looked like there was some support for some extra libraries and things going on in that space. So it's cool to see some investment there.
So guys, have you looked at OpenSearch serverless? What do you think about that?
So I was just going to mention that. So a couple of years ago, we got absolutely not serverless Aurora. Then we got not so serverless Neptune. Now we have obviously not serverless OpenSearch.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that as well.
I think it costs like even if you turn it on, like $700 a month. Even if you don't use it.
$790 a month or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. For OCUs minimum.
Yeah.
It seems to be that on the data announcements, if serverless isn't the name, then it's not. I would say is sort of the rule of thumb I've been taking.
Yeah, more like a
from this stuff.
marketing name.
Yeah.
I agree. So I also want to mention any service of AWS, which is also I think under mentioned. But you remember I mentioned about legacy software, like which still people have desktop applications, monoliths. But think about 10 years back, 20 years back, there are still so much mainframe in the industry, as you know, still COBOL. You have to depend on like developers in their 70s to develop or maintain this code. It was something interesting. I attended to a workshop, a company called Blue H, which was acquired by AWS last year. I will also input it to the chat. So this is now not a separate company. This is like a department of AWS. And what they do is they convert COBOL to Java. I attended to a workshop around 2 hours, and it did it, honestly. It smashed, like it converted all COBOL to a Java Spring Boot application. And you just get rid of mainframe in a couple of hours. So it was interesting for me because still so many legacy, so many COBOL in the industry. We need to somehow modernize those, right? Otherwise, they will not adapt to the serverless or the coupled architecture. So this was interesting. Blue H, it's called.
A Java though, I mean.
I mean, let's say the
Careful
yeah,
there.
that's the first step forward, because it's only it only supports Java, but at least it may help us to further modernize it into another. It only supports Java, unfortunately.
I kind of hope it doesn't work, because Goran Apache told me that like all the Dynamo and Lambda stuff I'm teaching now is basically going to become COBOL in a couple of years, and that's going to be my retirement plan, like from 50 to 70, just maintaining all this stuff. So I don't want any sort of anything that's going to work to modernize that stuff. Let me just retire right off into the sunset in peace.
Your long-term retirement plan.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. That is pretty cool, because you do hear those horror stories and just like what's going to happen on all this bank software that's running on COBOL. So it'll be interesting to see how well that gets migrated and over.
I vaguely remember, so I worked at one company, we had a mainframe where you could actually run Java on the mainframe. I wonder if that's why, right? So if anything happens, they can still continue to run it on that mainframe and not move it to the cloud.
It's interesting.
Yeah, could be. What about step functions, distributed maps?
I mean,
Interesting.
that's interesting. So in the early days, I remember like people trying to do like Hadoop stuff on serverless because it makes a lot of sense. But you know, I guess that simplifies that, right? Am I correct?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that. What was that?
I mean, so I remember like from the early days, because Lambda is able to like scale in parallel. People try to do big data like processing on AWS Lambda a lot, but it wasn't really natural because you had to schedule things like, I mean, try to figure out like how it works. And that I guess that solves that problem.
Yeah, there's a very cool pattern that is this idea of fan in, fan out, right? Where you basically use a whole bunch of lambdas to process part of something, and then you bring them all back together, and you know either scatter, gather, whatever you want to call it. But that is a very, very popular thing for a lot of data things that you don't want to run into a Hadoop or something like that. So really, what this is doing is, again, and step functions. The two services, by the way, that are blowing my mind at AWS are EventBridge and step functions, because they're essentially giving so much power and control, not just to interconnecting services and so forth, but now, with obviously the state machines and the integrations of all those different things. So the idea of being able to put your scatter gather sort of workloads into step functions, and then, that some Lambda function fails, it automatically tries again, right? I mean, so you don't have to worry about you managing all that yourself, but to implement that scatter gather pattern or that fan in, fan out with serverless in the past was a lot of coordination and orchestration that you would have to write yourself. You usually have like an orchestrator Lambda and so forth, and then manage all those failovers. Now it just does this automatically for you with this great visual workflow. I mean, so I think it's a very, very powerful, addition to step functions. I actually tweeted like hashtag RIP EMR, but I think that when I was talking to Deepak, he sort of corrected me. Like the more complex things, yes, you're still going to need EMR, but for these, more regular scatter gather things, I think that this is going to be, this is going to take the lead for those, which is great because it just makes it so much easier to implement. And that's what I love, by the way, when you take a use case that is so common and so popular, and then you productize it in a way that still remains incredibly open and flexible. That is just a really, really nice thing that AWS tends to do on a regular basis. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this one.
So anyone, anything else you want to add in terms of announcements?
I mean, one thing I like too, speaking of the data space, is the zero ETL from Aurora to Redshift. It sounds like they've sort of abandoned like the Elastic Views thing, which was going to be like sort of agnostic, any source to any target sort of thing, and now doing more point-to-point direct Aurora to Redshift. But I'm hoping we'll see all of RDS to Redshift, DynamoDB to Redshift, all those to Athena, whatever it is, just to make that so much easier. I used to do a lot of data engineering, and just like so much was in that pipeline of maintaining that pipeline, and just a bunch of garbage there. And the easier that gets, I still, like, a lot of people think we're going to have like this HTAP future where you have one database that does OLTP and analytics. I still think it's going to be separate. I think it's too hard to do that. But like the easier you can get that data from OLTP into your OAuth database for analytics, the better that's going to be.
So I think the Raymond videos, the session recordings are live, right? So we have about 10 minutes. Any session you recommend? I know anything, any must-sees.
I mean, Com 301, obviously, wouldn't miss that one.
That's the only one I went to. Yeah.
I was going to piggyback off of Alex's comment. We also had two folks from Liberty Mutual featured talking about modernization and migration of databases. And they had an overflow room too. So it was a very popular session. And it kind of walks through exactly from physical servers all the way up to having enterprise patterns. So something like that, if you're in the data space, I thought that was a really beneficial session.
I watched one. It was Emily Freeman and some man whose name I'm forgetting. Sorry. They did a brief overview of a lot of the new announcements related to developer experience, which is interesting to me because I think like 3 years ago, you would never think, you know, AWS and DX. They covered App Composer, did a really cool demo of Code Catalyst. That seemed cool. And then I think they demoed something with Amplify. But anyway, yeah, that was a must watch from my book. Oh, Adam. Yep. Thank you, Farah.
There was also a talk by Abby Fuller on Friday about their security process, how AWS dealt with Log4j, Log4Shell, and Heartbleed. All this, so it gives a good understanding of a nice security setup process.
Yep, I was going to recommend that one too. I like all the operational focus ones. So like David Yanachek always has really good ones if you can find him. I liked the one Julian and was it Chris Greenwood did about the under the covers with Lambda. Talked about that a little bit earlier. And then I think Eric Brandywine was doing one on like a day in the life of a billion requests or something. That's on my list, but I haven't watched it yet. But I've heard good things about that one.
Yeah, Eric Johnson's API 311 course too is about building next-gen applications with event-driven, or building next-gen applications with event-driven architectures. That one was really good. Presentation style too was great. Like he's always fun to watch. And then the other one Julian did too, best practices for advanced serverless developers, SVS 401. I think it's the only 400 level serverless course or serverless thing that is out there for reInvent, and it is very good because it does dive deep into some more of the advanced practices and so forth, which is always good because, you know, everyone gets sick of the hello world things. Like we got to bring people into serverless and so forth. But for those of us that have been there for a while, you know, we have more advanced things we want to do. So it's nice to be able to see some of those patterns codified, you know, and shared, and so other people can watch them and learn.
You highlighted that in your newsletter too, which I appreciated because he did that last year as well, but he always updates it and and has so much content he has to cram into those. So those ones are awesome to see. Along with that, the leadership sessions I think are really good too, like the serverless ones and the data ones. Just kind of giving a quick overview of all of the new things, deeper into a product space that you're in. I think that those are always valuable too to check out.
There's also other activities that happen other than the sessions, like the jams, the DevOps jam, the game day and stuff like that, whereas it's a competition. People get to form teams and try to solve a problem and they win, or there's a leaderboard and stuff like that. That's also really fun for people who are interested in doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would also recommend the one that I kind of mentioned, the one with Luca Mezzadira's domain-driven design and event storming, where he did a walkthrough about event storming and also how we can map it to event bridge, step functions, and Lambda. That was a 300 advanced session, not 400 level, but it gave an idea, I think, to the attendees how they can model their domain design. Because what I also see in the industry is the customers approaching me saying that they would like to implement or split their monolith or implement microservices or serverless. I'm always asking them, okay, what are your aggregate routes? What are your like actors in your domain? So these are from my point of view, are the base of your domain design and should be also considered while you are moving forward. Decoupling your architecture into serverless and, you know, event driven or even sourcing way of doing things. So it was my favorite. I'm also adding it to the chat window. I don't know. I'm not sure if it is live or if it is on YouTube or not, but it was quite interesting.
I would ditto what Alex and Jeremy mentioned about Julian Wood's sessions. It was 401, and then the other one was a 400 level. I think it was 404, serverless 404. So anything Julian is going to be 400 level. I agree. So those are really good sessions. There was an observability with OpenTelemetry. I don't remember I was trying to find it here. I don't remember the code, but it was with Marcia Vijalva and Danilo. And that one was also pretty cool to kind of see, because at least with serverless anyways, you know, that observability is something that's very hard for folks that are new to that world. You know, you can't SSH into a box the same you could in, you know, some of the enterprise systems. So I thought that was a pretty interesting session. I enjoyed actually, now that the videos up are on YouTube, going through like some of the heroes put together like their top 10 sessions. So I've been going through those. Those have been pretty cool.
Yeah, we
Just
should
missed that
mention
RC is
Alex's talk as well. That was what, Data 320, right?
320. Yeah. So if you want to learn
Yeah.
DynamoDB, come check that out. Had a member of the DynamoDB team there talking about infrastructure and stuff like that. So yeah, check that out.
And
I
if
really
you,
thought it was cool how you were leading that out and he was kind of like your guest speaker. I thought that was fun.
Thanks.
yeah, and if you
Yes.
want to have retirement, and go learn DynamoDB, so you'll be in that, those few people who are really good at
Exactly,
modeling,
right.
and then you'll have your retirement plan all set up.
That's right. There we go.
If we're plugging our own talks, I was also on the Build On live stream, so you can check those out too. Those were for folks that weren't at reInvent, and they're free to stream up on Twitch. So I did a session on Well Architected, and there were some great guests on there, including Jeff Barr, for those who are excited about that, and some other awesome folks. I know Emily Freeman was on there, and Corey Quinn and Matt Coulter. So there was some good representation there as well. So I'd recommend checking those out.
Yeah, there's just
folks,
you're not gonna,
right,
you're
yeah.
not gonna. I was just gonna say, you're not gonna. You can't go wrong with any of the talks. So anything that seems remotely interesting to you, and I love watching talks back at 2x speed just to kind of blow through them and get the ideas. And then if there's one that I really like, I wish actually I could get like 3x speed so I could really go through them fast. But I love taking, going through those talks, and then a couple ones that I like, I'll go back and I'll watch them, more slowly and take some notes and things like that. But yeah, there's just that's one of the great things about reInvent. So many amazing people, and not just the people who work at reInvent, but all the people from the community, the builders, everybody that comes together to create such amazing content. And there's just it's all out there now on YouTube. It's all free. So, if you've got some time, over the course of the next couple of weeks, there's a lot that you can learn, and it's all at your fingertips. So yeah, it's just amazing.
And if you joined late, this video it will gonna be on YouTube tomorrow, so you can watch it later on. Anything else you want to add? Otherwise, we will close. We are close to 1 hour. So
I'll just say I think there was
Yeah, please.
I think there was an issue with the chat. So some of the ones that were shared from the panelists will have to be reshared about the different sessions and some of the links that were sent out. So we'll make sure those get in there.
Yep. I will
put them in the show.
I will put them in the I will put them in the YouTube description. So
yeah.
Also, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say before maybe we close. I noticed Adam Salevsky walking around, and I approached him because I have also several customers in Turkey. So saying that why there is not a region here because of data residency, we are not able to. So I approached him. So he was quite welcoming, by the way. I was not expecting this. Yeah, he was quite welcoming. He stopped and spent some time with me, try to understand what type of customers are asking for region Turkey. So and what are their challenges? What is the regulation? So he kind of spent a lot of time. I mean, I was not expecting such behavior because he was so busy. He was like rushing around. It was quite interesting to have his time.
He might have been relaxed because apparently he had a private dinner with Dave Matthews playing a acoustic session. I know, that's what I heard. I saw some pictures. I was not invited.
I did not see that.
Nor would I have wanted to be. I don't like Dave Matthews, but that's just me. But anyways, for those of you who do like Dave Matthews, apparently you missed out by not getting invited to his private dinner.
All right. Thanks a lot, folks. If it's your morning or night time, thanks a lot for joining and sharing your feedback, your comments, and your favorite sessions, moments. Thanks a lot for being with us today. Again, this video will be on YouTube. So I guess see you at next event.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.